Welcome back to the podcast. I am your co-host, Keone McKeague, and with me today are the boys of the Fifth Down, Jared Shirai, Nolan Chang. Say what's up to the pod, boys.
Hello.
What's up?
Wow, it's been a minute since we recorded one of these. Just kidding. I know you're probably wondering why we have another episode coming out so soon. Unfortunately for us, because of our scheduling and all that jazz, we recorded this prematurely last week as far as our first episode back with the Fifth Down, and we did it right before day one of free agency started. So here we are talking about...
We plan ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So here we are talking about day two of free agency. It's been a doozy, but before we get to that doozy of news, we're going to give a shout out to our partners over at W Energy. You can head on over to w.gg, use our promo code POINSOY, that's POINSOY, for 10% off your order of the best tasting energy that money can buy. Boys, I know we've talked about it before. Give a shout to your favorite flavors just one more time for the pod.
Palm Blossom.
Pushing
Blossom
punch.
Did they get Palm Blossom back?
Yeah,
they did do like a limited release again.
Yeah.
Just saying, if you can hop on the train when they got Palm Blossom dropping, be one of them people, because honestly, it's probably
Unless you
my
don't
favorite
like
flavor as well. It's like, that is true, unless you absolutely do not like pomegranate. In which case, they have a ton of other great flavors that you can try. But head on over to w.gg, use our promo code. Boys, let's get into it. It's been a hell of a day for NFL football. I swear it's turning into the NBA with how many different things are happening within the first couple of days of free agency. It seems like damn near every running back, I don't even think not even damn near, every single running back that was a free agent this offseason is now on a different team. So for the boys here today, I'm going to split it up. We got fantasy talk and we also got on-field fit. So I'm going to throw it over to you first, Nolan. We're going to talk about the team that I think probably made the most moves in free agency, and that is the Atlanta Falcons. They go out, they fire OC Arthur Smith, but they go ahead and they get themselves Kirk Cousins, Darnell Mooney, and like I said, fire their head coach from last year. So now hopefully they get to use Bijan Robinson a little bit more. Throwing it over to you first. How do you see this fit with that team, especially with Drake London as well as Kyle Pitts on that team as well?
Yeah. I don't want to say, because I think it's been the track record for the last 3 years, but we may finally get the Kyle Pitts that we've been waiting for.
That's what I was saying.
Let's not sugarcoat, or let's not undersell the fact that Hawkinson has had his best years with Kirk behind center. And I think that this is going to be absolutely fantastic for them. I know they got rid of Jonnu Smith, who was kind of a weird outlier in whatever Arthur Smith was running over there, because he seemed to be outperforming Kyle Pitts more times than not.
Leave him alone. He's our OC now.
Hey, you're right.
But you're not wrong. He has some weird sets over in Atlanta, so I don't know.
And then we got Drake London, who has been a solid wide receiver, and he's probably going to burst out a little bit more. Mooney, he didn't exactly get that shine last season.
Chicago.
Because DJ Moore kind of ate that up a little bit with all for Justin Fields targets. But I think that, if there's any QB right now who can turn a wide receiver core into something beautiful to watch, it's Kirk Cousins, Captain Kirk. And we've been very open about it. Kirk has kept the Minnesota Vikings into relevancy for the most part, in my opinion at least. And I think he has that opportunity to do that again. And it's not going to take anything more than a competent quarterback to turn this offensive team into something relevant. And we had Ritter last year and Heineke, God bless them. They were not the
Both
answer,
of those,
right? So I am very excited to see what this Atlanta Falcons team does. It's looking pretty good, as long as, Kirk was never the mobile quarterback. So as long as he comes back 100% for his own game, he'll be good to go.
That is a fantastic breakdown. Yeah, I agree 100% with all your points. Throwing it over to you, Boog. obviously this is going to change up some things for fantasy football. With Kirk Cousins getting some brand new weapons over in Atlanta, as well as Darnell Mooney getting a quarterback who's a little more competent, Drake London getting a quarterback who's a little more competent, and and
Kyle
I just
Pitts.
forgot. Kyle Pitts getting a quarterback who's competent, and hopefully some, opening of space for Bijan Robinson. But throwing it to
Those
you,
checkdowns are going to come very, very hard and fast.
I would say definitely Kyle Pitts was technically a top tier tight end last year. Then you look at Darnell Mooney, Drake London. They were sort of second tier, third tier type of wide receivers last year. And then obviously Bijan Robinson was literally a first round pick last year. Do you see sort of an up or down value for any of those players?
Let's see. For Bijan, I think he'll stay as a first round. I mean, he was the heart and soul of that offense. So I still think, like you said, having Kirk, it'll definitely open up a lot more for the offense, and hopefully it'll open a lot more for him. Not just
And
people
firing
clogging
Arthur
lanes
Smith,
for him.
because he's not going to just not run him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I mean, they're not just going to clog the lanes because they know now that there's a competent quarterback back there that can make like mediocre offenses look pretty damn good. And I think Kirk will definitely build on this. He doesn't have just a Justin Jefferson because they don't really have a true number one receiver, in my opinion. Because I had Drake London and he did not do anything for me for 2 years. So this year,
he had
I
Desmond
do think
Ritter for 2 years.
exactly. No, exactly. And that's where I think, like, when you want to talk about the ups and downs of receivers, I think Drake London's value will go up. I'd see him maybe like a second, third, like maybe a second tier. I don't see any of them being a first tier, in my opinion, just because we know what the first tiers look like. I mean, and Darnell Mooney, now that he doesn't have a DJ Moore in front of him where he's going to get all the big throws, all the throws too, where him and London, I think, are going to split a lot, and where that means he gets a lot more targets. He lets get a lot more opportunities, and he's a good receiver. So he can definitely turn something around. And to Nolan's point, Hawkinson was a top tier like tight end mainly because of Kirk Cousins.
Top three. No.
Kyle Pitts, Kyle Pitts I think he's going to fit perfectly into that role. If the OC is going to do their homework on who and what Kirk Cousins is, they're going to understand that his tight end is really like important to his offense, and that's where Kyle Pitts' value goes up. And I don't think there's a whole lot of tight ends in the league right now that we can say are going to be top tier, but I do think he's going to jump into that category for sure, having that quarterback.
I would tend to agree with you that man can definitely utilize his tight ends to no end. So moving on to the next team we got here, we got the Browns trading for Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, they get Deshaun Watson back this year. He was injured, but he will be back, presumably in the lineup for them to start off the year. They didn't really make any moves to get a secondary quarterback. In fact, they lost
Jameis Winston.
Oh no. Excuse me. Yeah. They're right. They did get Jameis Winston as their second quarterback for that team. They now have Jerry Jeudy. They have Amari Cooper. They also have David Njoku, Nick Chubb coming back off of injury. Nolan, I'm throwing it over to you. As a team that had probably I believe they had the second highest rated defense last year. Now going into this new season, sans the Joe Flacco experiment, sans sort of all of the injuries of last year. Coming in brand new, Jerry Jeudy's in the fold. How do you see the fit for Jerry Jeudy with the Browns, first and foremost? And second, do you think that this puts them in a higher tier as far as a team in the NFL this year?
I think on paper it does, and it should. But I think we are all witnesses of what transpired in that first half of season with Deshaun Watson. Not saying he was like Jalen eloquently placed it when he said it about Deshaun Watson last pod. The dude showed up like a bum this past season. Nowhere really.
He definitely did not produce the way that we wanted him to produce last year. And it's interesting because
Yeah, I'm back. Hello. Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
Are we?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Shalmar.
I
just think
that's what
I was just gonna pick
Deshaun
it up
Watson,
from right where you
that's
said.
so perfect about Deshaun
I
Watson
think-
because that's
yeah.
exactly what happened to him.
Yeah. Words.
Without any words.
Technology. But yeah.
Yeah.
They were anchored by the great defense that they had, and I think it's going to be very important that Deshaun Watson make the right adjustments and training and motivating himself to be a better player than he was last season. Because we saw what
Wouldn't it be worse?
we saw what Joe Flacco can do, and this is no shade at Joe Flacco, but I'll put him on the tier of Kirk Cousins, where he's not necessarily the most spectacular quarterback, but he knows how to manage the game and he knows how to get his
100%.
teammates involved. So if Deshaun Watson can stop looking at it as he is the spearhead of this offense, I think that it will bode well for them, partnered with the phenomenal defense that they're going to have.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, honestly, this is one of those teams that's going to be a little bit of a sleeper. The tough thing about it is that we'll get to those teams in a second, but some of the other teams within the division made some substantial upgrades. We'll see how much of an impact Jerry Jeudy ends up having on this team in a very tough division. Boog, throwing it over to you. Do you see Jerry Jeudy's value going up or down as far as fantasy wise? Because obviously now he's with. It's hard to say a better quarterback because I don't really necessarily feel it's a better quarterback. I'm not
a younger quarterback.
I was just saying I'm not even yet able to say that he's a worse quarterback. But I will say that it is definitely going to be a different situation. He will have the help of Amari Cooper as an upgrade over Cortland Sutton. He will have the help of a healthy Nick Chubb over, I don't even know who the hell was starting for Denver as far as running backs last year, especially since everybody kept getting injured on that team. But yeah, throwing it to you, do you see this as an up in his value as far as fantasy play is concerned?
In my opinion, like honest truth, I think it doesn't move. I don't think it's any better. I don't think it's any worse. It's Deshaun Watson. If in all honesty, I'll be like, I think Nolan like kind of picked at it. If Joe Flacco was the quarterback, his value goes up tremendously. Because we know Joe Flacco is a good quarterback that will find his receivers well. Does that make sense? Like, for me, it really is about like they need to have a quarterback who can like not only manage a game like Nolan said, but also to be able to find his receivers and like if he's going to be the wide receiver 2 here, man, that's definitely going to be the biggest of mismatches because he was a wide receiver 1 where he came from.
If he was last year, if he was considered so let's just say for most formats, it's about 12 players, 15 rounds. If he was a 1 through 5 pick last year, do you think that he will be a 6 through 10 pick, 1 through 5 pick, or a 11 through 15 pick? Where do you think Jerry Jeudy would fall as far as draft stock?
I say 11 through 15.
Oh wow!
And the only reason for me was it's his health. His health for 2 years has been the biggest thing. I had him the first year. I had the opportunity to take him again, and I passed on him because of that very reason. And for me, that's going to be that's why I put him 11 15. If he was healthy, 6 to 10, 1 through 5, I'll take my chances because when he was healthy for me, he gave me good games, fantasy wise.
Yeah.
But because of his health, I dropped him. I think I dropped him, and I picked up the Chargers. That was the season I picked up the Chargers, like wide receiver 2 something. And it was just because Jeudy was he could not stay healthy.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why for me it's why he's down.
Looking at that situation, he's definitely going to go down. His name value is still up there, but as far as like fantasy, it's going to be hard to draft him high and to trust him. Going on to the next team we have here, we have the Bengals, who do go ahead and get Zach Moss and Mike Gesicki after trading Joe Mixon to the Houston Texans. This is a team that seems to be in flux. Joe Burrow is coming off of a serious injury. We have Jamar Chase, who was up and down with injury last year as well. Tee Higgins is rumored to want to trade out from this team. And Tyler Boyd is a free agent. So right now, they basically just have Zach Moss, Mike Gesicki, and Jamar Chase on this team as far as threats for Joe Burrow. So I'm throwing it over to you, Nolan. First and foremost, how do you see the fit for Zach Moss and Mike Gesicki on this team? And second, do you think that they are going to go up or down as far as play? Like, do you think they'll be better this year than they were last year? Do you think they'll stay the same, worse? Where do you see this team?
So what was what is the official or at least standing position of where Higgins is right now in his
Tee Higgins is officially tagged, so he's franchise tagged.
He's franchise tagged. Yeah.
So technically, he can stay on with the team. They'll have to pay him a pretty solid amount of money. If I'm remembering correctly, it's somewhere between 16 and 20 mil a year, or just for this year. But I mean, it's kind of like a hostage situation. You know, it's like if he wants out, it'd be kind of stupid to be paying him 20 mil if he wants to get traded somewhere where he can get a longer term deal. So,
well, I mean, we saw what Moss was able to do in JT's stead last season. So I think that it's not like you're getting some scrub running back necessarily. I think he is an RB1 when it comes to fantasy, and I'll let Jared kind of handle that. I don't. But I do think that he does bring that kind of aggressive run that they need.
That man carried me through the middle of last season.
That he did. Didn't you have Minshew? That's why. So there wasn't really a whole lot going on there. You literally had to rely on Moss.
And we saw the kind of starting off poor play of Joe Burrow, and then it kind of just fizzled out with an unfortunate hand injury. I think that you get those boys back in. I think if anyone can keep Higgins around, it's a healthy Burrow. And I think that's because he respects Burrow enough and he knows what Burrow can actually bring to that core. Jamar Chase, he stays healthy. He finally gets his boy back.
I'm just imagining I'm going to post this tomorrow and it's going to be like, Tee Higgins traded to the...
Dude, it's going to happen. We all know.
Disclaimer, honestly, this happened on Tuesday the 12th. So it happens.
I'm going to be honest. I really think he might be out. Honestly,
I mean, it's feeling like that because it's
feeling more and more like he's just
things are pointing in that direction. Gesicki is kind of, it's cool. I mean, who'd they have last year? Hayden Hurst, right?
Hayden Hurst, yes. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you're kind of swapping a pawn for another pawn. I think they're suitable tight ends, but they're
blocking tight end.
The ones,
mm-hmm.
They're there for a reason. But I think it's all going to just kind of fluctuate around Burrow. I don't think that this team is going to perform the way they have the 2 years ago or the year before that. So it is a little bit of a stock down for me on the Bengals.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. Honestly, it's going to take some magic by Joe Burrow to make that team as good as they were a couple years back. Throwing it into you, Boog. Obviously, we talked about it. Zach Moss, great stand-in for Jonathan Taylor last year. Mike Gesicki coming over from the Miami Dolphins. Didn't really do much with that team. Primarily known as more of a blocking tight end, but I'm throwing it to you. Obviously, now Tee Higgins may want out. Tyler Boyd, a free agent. They have Jamar Chase still. They have Joe Burrow still. Are you kind of stock up or stock down on Zach Moss and Mike Gesicki with the core that is currently signed and still on the team? So we're just going to assume that Tee Higgins is out the door and Tyler Boyd is out the door for now.
I'm kind of going to go stock down. You're asking Zach Moss to take a Joe Mixon role. If you look at the difference in that, like just alone, Joe Mixon literally rushed for over 1,000 yards last year, caught for over 300, like almost 400 yards, and Zach Moss did not come close in either one of his stats. He was 794 in rushing yards and 192 in receiving yards. You're asking a guy to be a focal point of part of an offense, which is going to be a great opportunity for him to see how it plays in. But like you guys said, the biggest thing for me is Joe Burrow. If Joe Burrow is not healthy, you're going to lean on Zach Moss a lot. If Jamar Chase is your only option, because he said, like we said, Gesicki is more of a blocking tight end than he is a receiving tight end, then that's going to be tough there too. Mm-hmm. So I think Zach Moss has a great upside. I would not draft him anywhere in the first 5 rounds, though. In my opinion, like I would take him as a late running back, just because I think he will get his opportunities to get his, because he is going to be the RB1 there. But at the same time, if that's going to be your only offense because Joe Burrow is not as mobile, or he like the offensive line's not going to protect him as much, and you're just going to end up running. It's going to kind of be like very focal pointed, and you're going to bottleneck literally nothing at the running back. So
the other thing I was going to say is it's no guarantee he starts. I mean, they do have that kid. Is it Chase Brown? What was his name?
It's Chase Brown.
Yeah,
Chase Brown. Okay, it was Chase Brown. I was like, Chase Brown showed a lot. He was dynamic. He could do a little bit of everything. Was a good receiver out of the backfield. So it's really no lock that Zach Moss starts. And Zach Moss has already been sort of a journeyman for a lot of teams as up until this point. So you're right. I agree. I tend to agree with both of those. I think they're both stocked down. Mike Gesicki is probably not even going to get drafted. Real honest, he'll probably just be on waiver wires as far as a fantasy is concerned. And assuming Tee Higgins doesn't resign in the next couple of days or just stays franchise tagged, this is an offense that will definitely struggle, regardless of the fact that they have Jamar Chase on the squad. So the next team we're going to talk about here, same division, the final, or excuse me, not the final one in this division. I forgot about my Steelers, but we have the Ravens, who did pick up King Henry. They picked up a very valuable piece in a very run-heavy team, defense or offense. They did move on from Gus Edwards as well. Not sure if J.K. Dobbins makes his way back onto the squad, especially with the Derrick Henry signing. And you know they're sort of up and down with their backups, but Derrick Henry, a surefire day one starter. I'm throwing it to you, Nolan. What do you think about the fit for Derrick Henry with the Ravens? And more importantly, what do you think about the Ravens now adding him? Also, including the fact that they did lose some players, including Patrick Queen today. They lost a couple of other defensive-minded players on their squad. But yes, their offense stays relatively the same while also adding a great talent in Derrick Henry. What are your thoughts?
Hand, glove. I think that this is a beautiful signing. I think that this is going to be exactly what the Ravens need. And it's no disrespect to J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and was it Keaton Mitchell, I believe,
Keaton
right?
Mitchell.
I think that they had good running backs. They had good running back. Dang it, Keone. But it was never this kind of running back. It was never this amount of force, this much of power, size, speed.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry is a absolute monster. And I think that if you really want to look at it from their point of view, this was the move that they needed to make. They still have one of the best defenses. I think that offense could be taking another step forward. This may also kind of allow Lamar Jackson to do a little bit more of actual throw plays rather than him trying to scramble too much to, I mean, it is up and down with how he's been performing, but I think if we're standing how we were talking about him last year, you wanted Lamar to prove that he is this quarterback that deserves this max contract to be an MVP. Yeah. And for that to happen, you need to actually perform well. And I think Derrick Henry is going to alleviate some of that because he's going to actually have an opportunity, or he's going to have an option if he's not doing well as a QB. And I think you have Zay Flowers coming back. Zay Flowers was a great steal for me last year. And I think he's an absolute unit when he comes to his route runs, a lot of short game. So it's going to be kind of interesting. I don't know if I still have so much stock in Bateman. I think that he is there. But it's going to be a lot of play. Yeah. But Mark Andrews is still there. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be an interesting team. They're going to be competing no matter what. But yeah, definitely with getting Derrick Henry was a boon for them. Boog, I mean, Derrick Henry has gone in the first round for pretty much every season that he's been in fantasy football. But do you think that this will put him, let's say, in the top? Because I would say he was a late first, early second in drafts last year. So do you think that this puts him in the top 10 for fantasy relevance next year, being behind a stronger line in Baltimore?
I 100% think so. We know, like you said, I think that was one of the biggest points, strong line. You also have a great defense, so he's going to get the ball more and more often. With a team like Tennessee, where he came from, he was already rushing at almost 1,200 yards. So now, and that was a focal point of their offense, right? You had D-Hop, him, and that was it. And if it wasn't anything, it was just give the ball to him and hopefully he gets it to work. And with a team like the Ravens, like Nolan pointed out, Zay Flowers, and then you have Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, who were two fantastic tight ends for me last year.
Yeah, Isaiah Likely, you know what I mean? For you, so happy for him.
Those two, it's just going to make it even better because both can block, both can catch. It's going to open up the game so much more for him because you don't know what they're going to run. And behind a big offensive line like we just talked about, it's gonna really give him opportunities to not just have big runs but get a lot of usage, especially in short down plays or even like first and anything you want to establish the run. He can easily get a hole and take advantage of it. He can go through it if he wants to. And exactly. Or he can create a hole himself and get you those little extra yards that you're looking for. And so I think his usage, I think his value just goes up because of these little things alone.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're going to roll out the final. I'm just going to skip to their team because it makes sense. We just went in order of everybody who was in the conference. So I'm going to skip to the Steelers, who obviously got Russell Wilson on just a bare bones minimum deal, which, I mean, for all the naysayers and the haters out there who are talking about the fit of Russell Wilson with this team, he's playing for $1.2 million on a 1-year contract. I mean, you cannot get who was a franchise quarterback for that low of money on any deal anywhere. So to get him there, pretty big. The Broncos will pay a majority of his salary for the next couple of years. But more importantly, they get him to sort of pair with George Pickens now because Diontae Johnson was also traded away from this team. So starter for starter in that trade, as the Steelers did end up getting, I believe it's Dante Jackson from the Carolina Panthers. So basically a wash. One's offense, one's defense. You know what I mean? We get a defensive talent. They get an offensive talent. But yes, the rest of the squad basically stays the same. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, George Pickens, and Pat Freiermuth over with Russell Wilson. Nolan, do you like the on-field fit for this squad?
You know,
with Russell
Steelers
Wilson,
country.
Sorry.
Let's weld. No, not gonna get that. One's not gonna catch on.
What was the thing that Jay said? I thought that was pretty clever too. The steel going or something like that. I forgot what he said.
I still got it.
I still got it. Yeah, that was it. I still got it. That was pretty funny.
Oh gosh,
you heard it here first.
If he does post it, I still got it. And we'll know he was doing. So.
But I think that this is absolutely a step up in your offensive game. Losing Diontae Johnson, because I do think second half of last season, he kind of popped back in because he was injured for most of the season, was he not?
Yes.
So he was able to come in and, kind of reclaim that wide receiver 1 spot. Mainly because there was just no chemistry between Pickett and Pickens. So I think that was just kind of like a dud on the way. And it's going to have to be created with Russell Wilson. I don't think that just from his couple years with the Broncos, he's shown me that he can really connect well with his receivers. But he did have, and we've mentioned it again on pod, he did have a great individual season last year, and it wasn't anything to mock, right? I think he actually played pretty decently well. There was just a lot of off-field things that were probably factors into how that all transpired. Yeah. But it's going to be exciting. I think Freiermuth, if he's healthy, is another great young tight end in this league, and I think that he can definitely pull something. I'm sorry, who did you say? Oh, they still, Najee, and they still have Warren. Najee and Warren, if they kind of bolster that backfield a little bit more, I think we talked about Najee's foot speed is a little.
Dare I say probably the best running back duo in the league as far as a proven running back duo, because It is literally like the polar opposite of running back. You have the guy who just runs slowly but follows the holes well and punches straight through them, and then you have the guy who's able to kind of scramble around to the side and get around the edge. So,
that's going to bode very well for them. All in all, I do have stock up in the Steelers because I think your defense was still phenomenal last year, and it still has that opportunity to do so. Stock up.
Mm-hmm. We still got it. Okay. I'm throwing it over to you, Jared. Obviously, so with what I kind of mentioned earlier, Diontae Johnson being traded away from the team, George Pickens presumably going to be their wide receiver 1 at the moment. But there is a lot of rumors that they will either target a free agent who's still out there. You got guys like Tyler Boyd. You got Brandon Ayuk who's looking to be moved. You got Tee Higgins who's looking to be moved. We'll be targeting one of those types of players. And or looking to use. Yeah, I don't even want to talk about it because I know that's
no, we're going to talk about it.
But I will say
have
they
an emergency
also
pod again for Brandon Ayuk.
Legit.
Just
I'm just going to record
just
by myself.
The Steelers have just signed Brandon Ayuk.
We got him. It's just like that's all I'm doing. But yeah, I mean, they have the 20th overall pick. This is a very deep wide receiver class this year's draft. But with that said, obviously they're not done making moves. But they did get Russell Wilson. They do have George Pickens. They have the running back duo that we talked about in Pat Freiermuth. Throwing it over to you, what do you think that this does for the fantasy value of both Russell Wilson and the rest of the team?
I mean, you spoke greatly on the running back duo. I think that their stock is just going to stay up. I mean, it sucks because not one's always going to get touchdowns, but he'll get you good on the yardage. He'll get you consistent basis use, which would be great for fantasy owners. I think George Pickens moving to the 1 and then looking for a 2 coming in is going to be great. I know Pickens had some big games. I know we talked a lot about Diontae towards the ending of last year because, like Nolan said, he did reclaim
Pickens' big games last year.
Yeah, I know. Don't worry about it. I appreciate
it. Shut up, Jared. I don't want to talk about it.
No, but I mean, the fact that he has that ability to do things like that with not even like what we would consider a great quarterback, because Russell did great things. He said it himself. He had a franchise tag. And by no means in the last few years, like you said, I think it was more off the field than on the field. In the last 2 years, he passed for 6,500 yards. And like Nolan said, in 2 years. And so it's 3,000 each years. And Nolan put it perfect. Last year was a great offensive output by himself. 26 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. That's what you want from a starting quarterback. And so he's willing to want to throw the ball.
And that's compared to 6 and 4 from Kenny Pickett, which is pretty crazy to look at. It's 6 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, but I'm like, my goodness, did not realize how
crazy the difference in stat line is. But so given you guys getting somebody who's going to help.
I was going to say my final question for you regarding the Steelers is: do you think that this puts Russell Wilson in sort of the quarterback 1 conversation if we're in a 12-man deep draft, and you can pick him or you can pick? I don't even know anymore because so many quarterbacks moved, but you could pick Gardner Minshew because
to be honest, I think I would take him. Yeah. I really think you guys are going to fill that. You guys are going to fill that wide receiver 2 slot, like you said, deep draft class, as well as you guys are searching. So if you can get Tee Higgins, you get Ayuk, for sure, I'm taking him somewhere along there because we know what Ayuk can do. But even if you get Tee Higgins, is a great target to be.
I think Tee Higgins is more realistic, but I'm not even going to put Ayuk in there. I just know that they're targeting basically any wide receiver that's available right now. But that's a definite dream out there. But
I think the plus side for you though is if you guys the why you guys get Ayuk over somebody like Tee Higgins is because it's different conferences. Ayuk would move to the AFC, so I feel like San Francisco would be more willing to move away than have to face him in an NFC championship game. So
I mean, the Ravens did just give us Patrick Queen. Shout out to the Steelers. Anyway, moving on from there, we're going to talk about the Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings obviously lose Kirk Cousins they get their replacement in Sam Darnold, and then they lose. I don't even know who. I think Alexander Mattison was starting for them, and he got dropped a good minute ago. They do get Aaron Jones in there from Green Bay, another rival going to a rival type of deal from this free agency period. Nolan, what do you like about the fit of Aaron Jones with this squad? And do you think that now that they're sort of running out with, I believe, a trio of Sam Darnold, what was his
JJ?
name? Josh
Nick
Dobbs
Mullins and Josh Dobbs.
Oh, sorry,
yeah,
you mean QBs.
yeah, and Nick Mullins. Do you think this is a good fit for him, especially now that the quarterback position is sort of, I'll just say, in flux? You know, there's no guarantee that they get his replacement here. Yeah.
Well, when you look at it from like our perspective, and we've been
also, since you had him in fantasy, I'm also curious to see, would you redraft Aaron Jones in this scenario?
Short answer is no. Mainly because of his health. It's more a detriment than his positive outlook can really look for me.
It was the look of a defeated man right there.
Week 1, huge output, and he's injured for the next like 6 weeks, 7 weeks. I don't remember, but I think that when you look at the Minnesota Vikings, the one thing that we have been very vocal about and very, very outspoken about is Brock Purdy not being that great of a quarterback. He still started over Sam Darnold. So whether maybe it was favoritism, maybe it was just the locker room, how he was able to mesh well better with San Francisco 49ers, Sam Darnold is not that quarterback. He stepped in, played well whenever he did. And now he's getting an opportunity to potentially get that starting job at the Minnesota Vikings with a clear wide receiver 1. So this is a big of opportunity for him, as you would want from any backup QB moving teams. You have an opportunity now with him. You have Addison, who showed out with JJ on the sidelines last season. And now you have Aaron Jones, who is a veteran running back. And if he does stay healthy, I don't think there's any question that Aaron Jones can still pack a punch when he's running downfield.
Sure.
So I do think that this is going to be an interesting thing to see with that kind of triage of the 3 guys that we talked about for quarterback position. But I still think I would probably give Sam Darnold the starting nod right off the rip. And it's going to be his position to lose. And if we're being completely honest, I don't think the Minnesota Vikings have much going for them. So it's going to be a trial by fire kind of thing for them this season. Because they still probably won't have Hawkinson by the start of the season, right? So they're kind of in flux, and they made some solid moves. So I don't have any poo-poo on their free agency and the start of their new season. But I had way more hope for them last year with Kirk behind center than I do now with Sam Darnold. So it'll be interesting to see.
I'm gonna be real honest. I think they're gonna be a definite bottom feeder type of deal. As much as I love Aaron Jones's talent there, he is a little older. He is a little more injury prone.
Yeah.
They don't really have a QB. They lost Daniil Hunter, who's huge for the Vikings, and I do not have the faith that I had in the Vikings that I did a couple years back. It just sucks that they might be wasting a little bit, barring them making some big trade for a quarterback. Losing, a couple years of JJ's prime is pretty sad. So, Boog, fantasy relevancy wise, I'm going to keep it more to Aaron Jones and JJ. Do you think it's a stock up, stock down for either of those players? Do you think that, Aaron Jones getting more touches in what could be a more run heavy offense could be beneficial? Do you think that Justin Jefferson in what could also be a more run heavy offense, do you think that leaves him out of the top spots, or I'll just say the first round for fantasy football?
I mean, Aaron Jones, I think he's still one of the better running backs. Like Nolan said, the biggest thing for him is just going to be health. So I would like if I know if I have that opportunity, draft him. Maybe not as a top running back, but like my second or third running back, I would definitely take a shot with him. Madison kind of got to do a lot in that offense last season. And so I think Aaron Jones being proven like that he can do things. Like Nolan said, at the end of the year when he was healthy, I mean, he was rushing for over 100 yards. He was receiving for 20, 30 yards a game. Like he can be a part of the offense. The hardest part, of course, we're going to say is we're going to talk about Sam Darnold. And that's just going to be the biggest question mark. I think with the weapons that San Francisco had, Darnold with him having that would have been the best thing. Not having Hawkinson in the beginning, getting Aaron Jones to kind of learn and play into this system is going to be a trial by error kind of thing, which is not going to help Sam Darnold's value. But I mean, you got a wide receiver 1 like Justin Jefferson and Addison as a 2. I mean, that's just great weapons in general. So I do think Justin Jefferson, I feel like he's just going to build a good relationship with Sam Darnold. And, when you're the wide receiver 1, you always want that because, you're going to get the ball. Justin Jefferson's going to get his looks. In all honesty, like he's still going to get it. I don't think he's going to be a 1 overall like he was this year, but he's still going to be a top tier receiver that's going to go first, but maybe one of the first to 5th receivers that's going to get picked because that's where the ball has to go. Yeah. Just in that generality alone.
The craziest thing about it, and this will probably catch me some flack for a little bit, even though I think that this will be sort of a bottom feeder team. I do think that Sam Darnold will keep JJ's stock relatively high. I do believe that Sam Darnold sort of has a Kirk Cousins light build, where he is sort of a big boy that can throw the ball. And he stands in the pocket. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of what you want from your QB. And with a guy like Justin Jefferson making plays for you, you can toss it anywhere near him and he'll get to the ball. So we'll see how that plays out. Moving on, we got the Patriots who do go ahead. I mentioned earlier that they did sign 3 tight ends. That's another interesting part of their play that I'm not really sure what the hell they're doing. They did get Hunter Henry, Chukwuma Okorafor, and Austin Hooper. But they also did go out and get Antonio Gibson and Jacoby Brissett. Jacoby Brissett will likely be the bridge starting QB, but they do have a chance at targeting a franchise QB since they do have the number 3 overall pick. Nolan, do you like the additions of the 3 tight ends, Antonio Gibson, who came over from the Commanders, and Jacoby Brissett with the Patriots, and Kendrick Bourne, I guess, that's one of their main
Kendrick Bourne's
weapons
coming off the ACL, though, isn't he?
Yes, he is.
So it'll be interesting.
But he did also just sign a huge extension, which is
I know. Well, I was like,
interesting.
Okay. So it'll be. You're losing Bill Belichick. This team, I'm just gonna say straight up, is gonna have a stock down. Antonio Gibson, great. He was supposed to kind of. I would say, on paper,
again, considering that they, have the number 3 overall pick, so they were,
they'll probably get Drake May maybe at 3.
Sounds about the name like they're going to get,
Mm-hmm. So it'll be fun to see if they compete Brissett versus him, see who can kind of take that starting position. You do have a lot of veterans on the team, like I said, Antonio Gibson. You have Hunter Henry, who was quite effective. I mean, they still have Zappy, right?
Yeah.
So
if rumors are to be believed, do you think that the squad that I've mentioned, with Caleb Williams, would look any better, worse? Because there are rumors that the Chicago Bears are considering just riding with Justin Fields, trading down so they could still pick up Marvin Harrison at the 3 as opposed to the number 1.
I think that would be kind of a better outlook. I mean, I didn't really watch Drake May, but I did see a little bit more of Caleb Williams. I think he's still a very versatile quarterback. But Jalen is right when he says that this boy has not proven that he can be an all elite starting QB in the NFL. So it's going to be a lot of. I have a feeling it may risk looking like the Panthers last year, just because I don't think that they have any position other than maybe Henry. I don't think you really have a clear number 1 in each position, and it was supposed to be Juju last year, and that hit the fan. Now you're going to
it morphed into Kendrick Bourne. I think he was more of a
Bourne,
and then more of a wide receiver 2 signing, but
he's coming off of the ACL. Now is he going to be the one? I I don't know. I'm fingers crossed for him and his health and his availability to come back. But this Patriots team is looking like LeBron leaving Cleveland. It's gonna real hard, I think. So stock down.
Yeah, stock down for sure. Assuming none of these people will really get. I guess there's one player that's fantasy relevant, so I'll throw him over to you, Boog. Obviously, the rest of the team's not really players that get drafted or will get drafted this year. Outside of if they do make a trade for a Drake May or a Caleb Williams. First, Antonio Gibson. Do you think this is a better fit for him as opposed to being sort of the second guy in Washington behind? It wasn't Antonio. It was who was the Washington running back? Why am I blanking on who that was?
Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson?
Brian Robinson. Gotcha. Yeah. So now that he's presumably the number one guy over there in New England, do you think that this puts him in the conversation to be drafted within those middle rounds? And on top of that, would you draft the QB that gets drafted to the Pats regardless of who it is?
Jeez. I don't think this puts Antonio Gibson into a high draft stack. I don't think. I mean, it definitely will get him more touches because when we look at the receivers, there's not a big receiver
Seems to be the
on
trend.
that.
You know, when you're like the guy who didn't pick a running back right early on,
Yeah.
and then it's like the fifth round, and this is the highest guy. This, you know. Sometimes, like, looking at it, you're like, oh, well, I guess Antonio Gibson's my number one because he'll get all the touches over in New England.
Is Stevenson not their one anymore?
Ramondre and
Yeah.
Ezekiel?
Coming off of an injury, I mean, they have him still, but they also have,
Zeke?
oh boy, Zeke. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm not even entirely sure what the contract status is for either of those players. Ramondre is coming off of an injury, so there is that added storyline in there. So if this is a three-headed monster, I think that makes it even more clear on
where you want to take him. But the thing is that's crazy too, is since Stevenson was injured, his stats are still way better than Gibson's, like not even close for the amount of games that each of them played. Like that's the crazy part. Like I'm just looking at it like for what it is. 16 games played, 265 yards of rushing. Stevenson played 12 games. He had 619 yards of rushing. Like,
yeesh.
I mean, it's like I don't want that. If I'm gonna go based off of that,
are you taking a chance on a past QB, regardless of who it is?
Ooh, that I want to say no. I want to say no, just based off of the fact of who the heck are they going to throw to? Like, even if you get Derrick May, he's a pocket quarterback. He's a pocket quarterback.
Did anybody draft Bryce Young? I couldn't remember. You know what I mean? Like, was there anybody that was just like,
I think someone did as their
did
second.
Did somebody draft
and
him,
then
or did somebody
him.
pick him up after the draft?
I know CJ Stroud was for sure a waiver wire because I remember I tried to get him.
No, because someone picked him up and then he didn't do well, so they dropped him. And then I remember trying to go for him, and at the same time you did, and you got him.
Either way. Just no. That was late in the season. I'm talking about like right in the beginning when he was like hot, like the very start of the season. I was like, I got him near the tail end of this last year. Yeah, because my starter was Lamar, so I needed CJ like at the very end.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I was like, he wasn't drafted. I remember that, but somebody else had a waiver wire that was higher than me and ended up getting him. I forgot who ended up having him and dropped him, but I can't remember who ended up picking him up.
If New England would have made a move for a wide receiver and not three tight ends, like
they did. They re-signed Kendrick Bourne.
Yeah, but I mean, if they made a move for that, because if they do get Derrick May at their draft status right now,
Drake May,
Drake May, sorry, I do think he's a good pocket quarterback that will be able to find, because that's what he did at North Carolina. He found his receivers well. He wasn't like that big of a running quarterback. He's mobile enough, but I mean that's youth.
Yeah,
of course he's going to run.
Irregardless, I was like, I think they're going to be fantasy irrelevant because this is just a team that is in complete flux. But the next team also I wouldn't say they're necessarily fully in flux. They do have a lot going on regarding the sort of storylines around the team. They lost Josh Jacobs. The Las Vegas Raiders, who did pick up Gardner Minshew, that was about it. They released Jimmy G this just earlier today. They still have Devontae Adams. They still have sort of like their mishmash wide receiver core. But now it's Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell. I'm not sure that they have a super high pick, so they may have sort of a second tier quarterback if available to them in the draft. Looking at the Raiders situation, do you like the fit of Gardner Minshew with this Las Vegas squad, especially as he will presumably be the bridge starter guy?
I like him more than Aiden, if that says anything. No, he has the pocket presence, and I think he performed very well. I think, forgive me if I'm wrong, they were just on the cusp of making that wild card game.
So
no, yeah, either way. I'll let you fact check that as I'm continuing. But,
they were one of the, sorry, I got distracted by my phone. They were one of those teams that needed one of those very specific situations to play out in order for them to get to the playoffs. Yeah,
being able to step in for one of the lottery picks at QB and able to perform at a high level and get your boys involved, I think he's going to do just fine with the Raiders. But I don't think the Raiders have had any luck with getting a real elite quarterback, even when they had Derek Carr. But call a spade. You still have why am I blanking on his name?
Devontae Adams.
Yeah, Devontae Adams. There you go.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be real nice for him because, we saw how well he utilized Pittman last year with the Colts. And now I think it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think the Raiders are going anywhere fast, especially with the Chiefs in their conference. So it's going to be a wash. I don't really have a stock up, stock down. I'm gonna sit neutral on this one.
There's a chance they could just stay second because, the Chargers are probably looking to rebuild pretty soon with Harbaugh trying to trade everybody. Yeah, so they lost Eckler. So fantasy relevancy wise, we're just gonna skip that team, Boog, because they got Devontae Adams, but just real quick before we move on to the next one, do you think this is a great thing for Devontae Adams or a bad thing for Devontae Adams? Because I will say this, he performed pretty well considering he had a hodgepodge of Jimmy G, Aiden O'Connell.
And I think it's good. Like we said, kudos to all the backup quarterbacks. Gardner was definitely in that conversation.
To think that he's an upgrade over who they had starting last year.
and he passed for 3,300 yards last year, so I do think that it's going to be a great thing. Like I'm just going to harp on what Nolan said. Knowing he had Pittman and what he did with Pittman, it just shows that what he can do with a wide receiver one. And I was like looking at numbers wise, and it's kind of crazy that Jacoby Myers was only 75 targets off from Devontae Adams. So, that's a nice two-headed.
It's not crazy.
A two-headed thing.
Mid-season?
Yeah.
I had Adams.
Exactly.
Adams, and I saw exactly how many times he got targeted again.
So Gardner Minshew for me, I think this would be a great move for him.
Is it Zamir White now? Is the starting
Zamir White is, I think,
Zamir White is starting running back. Yeah.
All right.
Hey, he was solid for me. So I was like, I think I started in one game or something like that. Anyway, with that said, moving on to the next team we got here. We got the Commanders, who did get Cliff Kingsbury at OC. One of the more brilliant offensive minds out there now, being the helm for that squad. They did end up picking the veteran Zach Ertz at tight end. They got Austin Eckler, sort of a weird year for him last year, but now he's over here on the Commanders. And they did pick up a backup quarterback in Marcus Mariota. They are looking to possibly draft their franchise QB at number 2, which means that there will be a possible Sam Howell trade in our future here. Seems more and more likely, especially since they just signed Marcus Mariota. It would be a very weird situation to just hold Sam Howell hostage as your second QB. But throwing it to you, Nolan, do you like the fit of Austin Eckler with the squad? Cliff Kingsbury, Zach Ertz, Marcus Mariota. Thoughts, opinions?
I think they're all nice little tip-tap ads. But Sam Howell was the most sacked QB in the NFL last year. So I don't know. I mean, you probably didn't name it by choice. If they haven't bolstered that O-line at all, then, it's... Sorry, who was their running back again they picked up?
They did
Austin
not.
Eckler.
Austin
Eckler is not going to have a happy time there. I don't think that O-line really protects the QB nor opens up gaps for Austin Eckler to actually work well. And Austin Eckler, from what we saw last season, he's a little bit on his decline. He was not exactly as upward trajectory as he was.
I'm going to push a little bit back. I'm going to push a little bit back on that only because I don't necessarily blame the offensive line for Sam Howell getting sacked so much. This is where I feel like his biggest downfall was. He's a great arm. He's a great QB when it comes to getting the ball to his players. He has a lot of heart. But that heart meant that he was trying to make plays when he should have just...
because he scrambled a lot. There was a lot. Yeah. He had averaged a lot of
He tried to stay up longer than he should have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying, that's a great way of putting it. I wouldn't say the O-line is where the buck stops on this team's kind of performance. But I don't think these moves are really going to move the needle. So I'm going to say it's neutral on the stock of this because I'm hoping that they do make a move and they kind of push away Howell somewhere else and maybe get something in return, and maybe draft a QB that they need or sign a QB that they want. I don't even know who's available left in free agency for QBs, but it's not going to look pretty either on that one.
I don't think they're going to sign. There's nobody at this point. I mean, unless they're trying to get Mason Rudolph. Anyway, throwing it over to you, Jared. Obviously, Cliff Kingsbury, highly touted for his ability to sort of work with younger quarterbacks, and not just that, but his ability to sort of move players in a way in which they can get other players open. He's very good with sort of like the pre-snap options and all that sort of stuff. They're at number 2 in the draft. They had the chance to draft one of their QBs. There's a lot of rumors pointing to Cliff Kingsbury and his connection to Caleb Williams as a possible route for them to take as far as getting their franchise guy. But they go out and they get themselves a very good backup tight end, I guess, now. Is in Zach Ertz. They go out and get a running back in Austin Eckler. They get a backup QB in Marcus Mariota. Do you think that all of these things will help in fantasy relevancy, especially for Austin Eckler, who was presumably a top 5 running back really last year he was a top 5 running back as far as draft stock wise?
I do think that, especially for this, like you said, the offensive coordinator being able to pre-move things before the snap and like the designs that he makes for an offense, I do think Austin Eckler will be a big part of this. I think I can see it being very comparable to your guys' 1-2 punch between Harris and what is it called, Jaylen Warren. Because I feel like these two running backs are kind of the same breeds in that, like very comparable
Jaylen
in that
and
regard.
Eckler are damn near the exact same.
They mirror each other, right?
Yeah.
So I do think like having that 2-headed horse, like you said, they're the proven best 2 running backs like duo in the league, and I think that from that design that this could be a nice start to something new. But the signs, like you said, of them taking this and that and everything, it's going to be one of those, honestly, where I think they're building they're drafting a quarterback. This is great.
Sorry.
I getting a free concert over here.
The start of something new.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I do think, but talking about Zach Ertz.
I was like,
yeah.
I know you guys are so.
This will be the start of something new. It's the start of something new.
Oh my gosh. That's how I can tell what time it is.
Oh boy.
No, but I don't think Zach Ertz is very much on a decline in any way. I just think he got stuck in a really bad situation in Arizona. Like, I still think he's a
especially with the
capable.
emergence of McBride, yeah,
My man.
Yeah.
boy, yeah.
So I do think
Mhm.
he's still a very capable tight end, catching and being a blocker for that. And that's gonna if he's a blocker, then he's only gonna help their offensive line even more.
True.
And it'll definitely give whatever quarterback they decide to go with or another option. That's the veteran option. So
yeah, I agree. That's a sure-handed guy. That's the kind of guy you look for a young QB. The next big move we got here, sort of getting to the tail end of these big moves that did happen. The Packers go out and get Josh Jacobs. They will presumably have one of the more talented younger cores. They have Jordan Love. They have Josh Jacobs. They have
Christian Watson.
and Dobbs.
Yeah, I was like, it's not Romeo Dobbs. There was Christian Watson, but there was one more guy.
Jalen Reed. Jalen Reed was your guy.
Yeah, that was my guy because I was like, there was my guy. I forgot what his name was. Jalen Reed. They do have Luke Musgrave as their tight end there. I mean, it's a very young group that proved that they can make it into the playoffs and prove that when it comes to playoffs, they're very close to pushing over that edge of getting to championship contention. So I'm throwing it to you, Nolan. What do you think about this young group? Do you think that Jordan Love is for real? Do you like the fit of Josh Jacobs now with the Packers? And most importantly, do you think that he really is dead to Giants fan or to? Oh my gosh,
that was Saquon Barkley.
Yep, wrong guy. That's coming later. Huh. Here we go, Josh Jacobs. It's the start of something. Okay, here we go.
I'll keep it short and sweet. I think Josh Jacobs is Aaron Jones, maybe 5 years ago. So I think this is going to be a nice little move for them. And they're coming back with the same young core that they're riding with, and we saw what that young core can do. You have kind of offense on all parts. Musgrave, unfortunately, went down with injury for most of that season, so I think he still has a little bit more to prove, but he had nice flashes, right?
Yeah.
So a team like this that's just bolstering their running back core and still made the playoffs, I think that's got to be a stock up for me.
Yeah, that's a great comp. I like that. The 5 years ago, Aaron Jones. Boog, does this put Josh Jacobs back into the top 5 contention as far as drafting for fantasy this year?
I definitely think so. I feel like he's in a better situation than he was in Las Vegas. I think the offensive line is probably better as well there, so it'll definitely open a lot of things for him.
Yeah, they did lose some of their veterans. Bakhtiari was one of the guys they released, but I think Josh Jacobs he's dealt with some pretty terrible lines over in Las Vegas, so this will presumably be an upgrade for him in every single way. With that said, we're going to move to the Philadelphia Eagles and the player that I was talking about earlier. Now it's Saquon Barkley. They have quite possibly one of the strongest young running cores and two of the strongest pairs of legs in the NFL, with both Jalen Hurts and now Saquon on this squad. Nolan, they made a lot of additions today. This was probably their biggest. Looking at this fit with the team, how do you like Saquon Barkley with what was ranked as the number one run behind offense or line last year?
I think this is going to bode well for both the Eagles and for Saquon himself. We talked about it. His legs were just overran over there in New York. So this will kind of alleviate his usage rate, which will allow him a little bit more longevity. And with now Jason Kelce retired, we really don't know how effective that tush push is going to be. So what that does now is that's going to open up maybe 5 more plays where he'll be that third down back, kind of pushing through. And who better to do that than Saquon Barkley? They didn't use DeAndre Swift right last year in that respect, and they just kind of rode with the tush push to for better for worse. That's what they did. They have a little bit more of I believe they said that they're no longer going to have Sirianni be doing the play calling. They're going to stick with their OC kind of doing that, correct?
Yes.
So I think that's going to bode well for them as well, especially with who they have. As long as everything kind of returns back, and they do have Jalen Hurts kind of keeping things kosher as a QB and, not trying to do too much and getting the guys involved that he should be getting involved, I think that this team they may actually perform better than they did last year, especially that second half of the season. I think I'm going to go stock up with this Eagles team.
Jeez, if they perform any worse than that, that was pretty terrible. But throwing it over to you, Boog. I mean, does this lock Saquon into a top 5
100%.
draft spot? Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like no question for me, at least. Is AJ Brown on the way out?
That's what I've heard.
That's still up in the air. Because Saquon I think definitely helped assuage a little bit of that, but we'll see as far as what happens with that. I'm sure there will be some talks in the next couple of weeks as far as where he could go.
I feel like that takes a big hit to their offense as well.
I'd agree with that 100%. If they do lose him, it's going to be sort of
then it's Saquon's in the same situation he was before.
Yeah. I mean, that's stock up for Devontae Smith, though.
Yeah,
I mean, for sure. But hey, maybe you get AJ Brown.
Zachariah, right?
Pittsburgh gets AJ Brown.
That boy was pretty nice out there on the.
If we can see you stop
I'm
just throwing everybody at Pittsburgh. All the receivers looking for a new home. You know where to look. Look in Pittsburgh.
He's kissing up to you in football because when it comes to basketball, I'm just trying
to get Keone's hopes up over here.
With that said, we're gonna move on to the next squad. This is one that I think hits home for both of you guys. I guess technically more Jared, I guess, in this one. But this is the Jacksonville Jaguars. The prince that was promised may lose out on Calvin Ridley, but he did add Gabe Davis. And he did also get a huge upgrade at center with Mitch Morse from Buffalo. Looking at the fit of these two players with this squad, do you think that they will be better than they were last year with these two additions, especially with Calvin Ridley presumably out, assuming he doesn't sign sort of a team-friendly deal for the Jacksonville Jaguars? And do you like the fit of Gabe Davis sort of taking over the number 1 spot with Jacksonville?
I think I do. Because it was always calling it the Gabe Davis effect, right? He would go off one game and then have a goose egg the next game, and then go off another, and then another goose egg, and another goose egg, and another 30-point performance fantasy-wise. Trevor Lawrence is not Josh Allen's, and the Buffalo Bills are not the Jacksonville Jaguars. So you're going to have a lot more opportunity for Gabe Davis to actually have a consistent role. Is he going to get 20, targets a night? No, but no wide receiver does. I think he's going to be sitting pretty at maybe like 8 to 10, and I think that's going to be fantastic for him. So if we kind of really look at it in that respect, you had a strong center in front of Lawrence, and you're able to do that, and maybe you do sign Ridley back. You're looking at a real nice receiving group. You still got Kirk there. You're going to have Gabe Davis, and if you have Calvin Ridley back, you are set on all parts of that field.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be interesting to see, and I'm going to give it a slight stock up.
I like that. Especially with Calvin Ridley, at least outwardly stating that he would like to stick with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They could presumably take that sort of Cincinnati Bengals step with their receiving core, being as talented as it is. Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, and Calvin Ridley being there, along with a much better offensive line, and Trevor Lawrence, who has been up and down, but more ups than downs. Boog, do you think that Gabe Davis now hops into the sort of upper echelon of wide receivers as far as fantasy stock? And do you like the fit, and do you think that players like Travis Etienne take a hit in any sort of way as far as fantasy is concerned?
I would say if Ridley leaves, Gabe Davis does kind of become to that role, because we had Ridley as kind of one of the top tier, topper, like higher tier wide receivers. in our league, at least.
Prior to a wide receiver who was a huge disappointment.
Yeah, but I do mean like Nolan said with Gabe Davis, he'll get the ball more because it's not that Buffalo Bills offense, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I do think if Ridley leaves and Gabe Davis gets an opportunity, I do think he gets a lot. But I don't think it hurts Travis Etienne as much as people are going to think, because I think like he's still a really big part of their offense.
Huge.
And to take the ball away from him would just be dumb. To not give him his opportunities would just be dumb, because a lot of what he did, and a lot of what he did is what opened up the passing lanes for Trevor Lawrence or the other quarterbacks that got the opportunity to play. Yep. So I don't think it hurts him. It might actually help him if we have receivers that, like you guys said, like you said, Keone, Calvin Ridley was a big disappointment. So if Gabe Davis goes off, it's only going to open more lanes for Etienne to have bigger games. So I don't think it's going to hurt his stock at all.
And I definitely think that the thing that Gabe Davis adds that he's been for Buffalo for a long time is a deep threat. Calvin Ridley is also the same way, but Gabe Davis I feel is more sure-handed, especially with Buffalo. You could see he just was so good at catching the ball. They also have sure hands sort of in the middle with Evan Ingram. And then they obviously have Travis Etienne, who comes out of the backfield. I think that sort of three-headed monster of the deep, the mid, and the backfield is going to be another element that they didn't really have last year consistently with their wide receiver core. And I actually really like Gabe Davis becoming a number one wide receiver. So he may be a guy that if you're drafting, look out, because he will probably take a.
I don't know.
I think he'll take a big boon without being with Josh Allen. The final kind of a two that I have here. Actually, I'm just going to stick to the last one. The last one I got here for you guys. The Chicago Bears, they end up getting DeAndre Swift and Gerald Everett. They lose out on Darnell Mooney. Right now, it's up in the air whether or not they're going to keep Justin Fields or if they're going to trade him for Caleb Williams. If we're playing devil's advocate and it's going off of sort of what are the louder rumors out there, they do get Marvin Harrison Jr., they have DeAndre Swift, they have Gerald Everett, they keep Justin Fields, and obviously they have Cole Kmet, who's already on the squad.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about the squad? Do they take sort of that proverbial leap this year? Do they get any better than they were last year? And do you think that Justin Fields sort of takes the leap for the squad?
Well, starting off, I love the addition of Swift. I think Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson, it was a very kind of up and down season for them. I didn't really know if I could really trust either of them as that RB1
don't
for
wait
that
to
team.
grab a running back, guys.
Yeah.
Just don't wait.
So I think having Swift there is going to, we kind of saw Detroit didn't use him right. Philly didn't necessarily use him right, but he did have a better year. I think this is going to be another notch up for him in his career.
That's a great point.
I would love to see them take Marvin Harrison at the 1. I don't think that would be outlandish for them to do that. And depending on who's kind of left at that number 10 spot, I might be willing to, pick up some supplementary positions just so you can kind of bolster your roster in any sense. I don't think they need to go after. I think I saw the projected number 10 was Bowers. It was like, you don't need Bowers when you have Kmet and you have Everett now, apparently, right?
Go get a tackle. Go get a center. There are a lot of them available in this draft.
Yeah.
Shore up that line for Justin Fields. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you can play with it a little bit. I don't remember who's at 11 or whatever. Maybe if Bowers is available and you don't want them to go to a team that is going to be competing with you twice a year or something like that, trade away at the 10. Trade away at the 10 for someone who you know is going to want Bowers, and you can kind of play around with that. This team can perform well. I think it really can. I think they should ride it out with Fields. You still got DJ Moore, and now you're going to have Marvin Harrison Jr. It's that you're doing exactly what the Chicago Bear fans have wanted, and you're wanting to build more and more each year. You can't just flip a switch and be automatically a playoff team or a deep run team, but I think that's going to pay off way more for them if they play this the right way.
Could not have said it any better, my brother. Throwing it over to you, Jared. Do you like the fit for DeAndre Swift as far as a fantasy standpoint? Obviously, this is a substantially worse offensive line than the one he was running behind last year. However, he will be getting substantially more touches in this offensive scheme, considering that Philadelphia didn't really utilize him the way that he should have been utilized. but he will be getting more with the Chicago Bears. Do you like his stock as far as fantasy is concerned? You projected him higher or lower than he was this last year?
I think he'll be higher. Touches alone will give him the more opportunity. He will be the number one for sure. You look at the stats just alone on him compared to
Khalil Herbert or Roshan Johnson or Dante Foreman.
We'll put it this way. You combine Johnson and Herbert's output from last year, that is Swift's output by himself.
Roshan Johnson had to be one of the biggest disappointments of anybody last year.
Yeah. So I mean, having Swift and giving him the opportunities, like you said, they might be a little tough in the beginning to get used to because their offensive line will not be as good.
Mm-hmm.
But should say they have Justin Fields. Should say they draft Marvin Harrison Jr. Should say they have DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, and Gerald Everett. Like, I do think that helps shore up a lot of like what people will be looking at. Because if you only have DJ Moore as your threat and Cole Kmet coming kind of off a screen, it's not going to be a big offense for you.
Yeah.
And that's going to be literally clogging DeAndre Swift's lane so that he has no yardage.
Oh, and they just got Owens too. Did they not?
I'm not sure.
I don't know who you're talking about. Which
Owens?
Yeah.
Oh, for their line. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
for their line?
sorry.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, who?
Sorry,
But
about
yeah.
that,
So
They did
I
do
think,
some upgrades for their line, yes.
Yeah.
yeah.
but I do think Swift will have a better time, and like you guys said, he will be utilized a lot better to his talents and his like more of his toolkit than anything else. So I do think it'll be good. I think it's a great fit for him.
The sort of underrated part of this for both fantasy and in real life is Gerald Everett. He's a fantastic blocking tight end.
Yeah.
And not only that, but he can catch the ball. He's also a big target when it comes to the sort of like 5 out from the goal line type of deal. I
used him a lot last year.
I like having him opposite of Cole Kmet. I think
I was gonna say the double
them.
tight end set is gonna be like a go-to for them, just to have the
100%.
options.
I mean,
And Cole Kmet in his own right is also a great blocker as well. So
Yes,
that's another great part.
So you're gonna have the run option, let alone like two sure-handed like tight ends to be able to throw.
I'll say this too: if they go that way, say they trade down, I would say more likely they'll trade down in order to get Marvin Harrison. I don't think they'll just take him at number one. But I think if they do trade down, any of the top three, if they trade down for any second or third and then additional picks, I honestly, I think that they're going to add a lot of pieces in this draft. It's supposed to be a very deep draft as far as talent. And this will be the prove-it year for Justin Fields. You can always go and get yourself the next guy. Of course, it's going to sting a little if Caleb Williams ends up being just an absolute boss right off the rip. But if not, you know what I mean? You show up the rest of your team and you can have a chance at a franchise QB in another draft later on down the road. So, anyway, with that said, it has been a doozy, but people, we got a ton of news this week, so we just absolutely could not skip out. Could you imagine if we waited to the end of free agency to talk about everything? Because that was only the first 2 days. There's going to be a lot more news. We haven't even talked about anything on the defensive end as far as additions for some of these teams. I also skipped out on a few names. Tony Pollard also moved to the Titans. We got Devin Singletary going to the Giants. There's a couple of others in there sprinkled throughout that I didn't get to mention, but a lot of moves, a lot of great teams. Please keep it locked in here with the Fifth Down for all of your fantasy, real football, relevant news, and advice. Boys, do you have anything else to say before we get off of this pod?
Start of something new, everybody.
I'm just happy we're in single. All right, there we go. With that said, it has been a pleasure. It's been a joy. From all of us here at Point Soy,
Good vibes and love, everybody.
bang, bang. Shoots.